World News Live updates. Novo Nordisk sales slow sharply amid competition and US tariff threats. Stay informed with our World News Live blog, your real-time window into global events. From major geopolitical developments and scientific breakthroughs to royal family updates and cultural milestones, we bring you fast, factual, and curated updates as they happen. Whether it's unfolding conflicts, diplomatic shifts, climate alerts, or key moments in international politics, our live blog keeps you ahead of the news curve. Designed for readers who want both speed and substance, this is your go-to source for staying connected with the world minute by minute, headline by headline. Danish pharmaceutical company Novo Nordisk has seen a significant slowdown in sales for its injectable diabetes drugs like Ozempic, prompting cost-cutting measures, according to a report in The Guardian. The company, which had become Europe's most valuable due to its booming GLP-1 drug sales, has lost $95 billion in market value after reducing its full-year sales forecast last week. The slowdown is attributed to fierce competition in the sector and the threat of potential U.S. tariffs under the administration of President Donald Trump. Pakistan has officially extended the deadline for the deportation of Afghan refugees to September 1, according to a report in AP. This decision provides a temporary delay for many facing removal from the country. The United Nations has welcomed the extension but continues to express concern about the possibility of coerced returns, where individuals may be pressured to leave rather than returning voluntarily. The policy primarily targets undocumented Afghans, as distinct from the approximately 1.4 million who are officially registered and hold proof of residence cards. This development occurs against the backdrop of a decades-long history of Afghans seeking refuge in Pakistan due to conflict and instability, and it follows a significant deportation drive that began in late 2023. Australia's e-safety commissioner has accused major technology firms of not doing enough to combat the spread of child sexual abuse material (CSAM), according to a report in Al Jazeera. The watchdog has put forward recommendations, including measures like client-side scanning, which have been criticized for potentially undermining user privacy and the security of end-to-end encrypted communications. This move aligns with a broader global push for greater online safety regulation, such as the EU's Digital Services Act and the UK's Online Safety Act, increasing pressure on tech companies. These firms now face significant regulatory scrutiny, potential fines, and reputational risks as they navigate differing international laws and the complex balance between child safety and user privacy. A renewed effort to remove a statue of General Marcel Bigeard in his French hometown has reignited a national debate over France's colonial history and the legacy of the Algerian War, as per a report in the New York Times. General Bigeard, a highly decorated but controversial figure, is accused of using systematic torture during the Battle of Algiers in 1957. The controversy reflects a wider, ongoing reckoning within France about how to memorialize historical figures associated with colonial rule. The debate is causing significant social friction locally and remains a sensitive point in Franco-Algerian relations, highlighting deep divisions in French society over its past. Russia has escalated its dispute with Australia to the nation's High Court, claiming the cancellation of its embassy land lease in Canberra was illegal, according to a report in The Guardian. The Australian government is defending its 2023 decision, which was enacted through special legislation, by arguing that the proposed embassy's proximity to Parliament House constituted a significant national security risk. Australia's Solicitor General further contended in court that Russia should not receive compensation for the termination, stating they should not be paid for problems they cause themselves. Kim Kyeon-hee, the wife of South Korea's ousted ex-President Yoon, appeared for questioning by a special prosecutor on Wednesday over allegations including stock manipulation and bribery, AP said in a report. The probe is one of several launched by Seoul's new liberal government targeting the former conservative administration. The questioning follows the impeachment and removal of Yoon from office over his brief imposition of martial law in December, with the current investigation into Kim also covering suspicions of interference in party nominations. The Italian government has put forward a draft law to tighten controls on access to gender-affirming medical care for minors, Fox News says in a report. The proposed legislation, advanced by Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's socially conservative Brothers of Italy party, would reportedly make access to treatments such as puberty blockers and hormones more difficult. Key measures are said to include requiring mandatory judicial authorization for any medical interventions and prioritizing psychological support pathways. This move aligns with a broader trend in several other European countries, including the UK, Sweden, and Finland, which have recently implemented more cautious policies regarding gender-affirming care for youths. Bosnia's Central Electoral Commission has stripped separatist Bosnian Serb leader Milorad Dodik from his office as the president of Republika Srpska, the Serb entity within Bosnia, as per a report in AP. This action follows an appeals court verdict that sentenced Dodik to 1 year in jail and banned him from all political activities for 6 years. The commission stated that Dodik has the right to appeal the removal, with an early presidential election to be scheduled 90 days after the decision is finalized. Bosnia's Central Electoral Commission has stripped separatist leader Milorad Dodik of his office as president of Republika Srpska, the country's Serb-majority entity, according to a report in AP. The decision follows an appeals court verdict that sentenced Dodik to 1 year in prison and imposed a 6-year ban on all political activities. The removal triggers an early presidential election for the entity, which must be held within 90 days after the decision becomes final. Dodik retains the right to appeal the Commission's decision. The Charity Commission for England and Wales has criticised the handling of an internal dispute at Sente Bail, a charity founded by Prince Harry and Prince Sizo, AP said in a report. While the Commission found no evidence to support allegations of widespread bullying or misogyny, it faulted both sides for allowing the conflict to play out in public, which damaged the charity's reputation. The investigation was launched following public complaints against the organization, which provides support for young people with HIV in Botswana and Lesotho. The regulator's findings clear the charity of the most serious allegations but highlight a need for improved internal governance and conflict resolution. A fast-moving wildfire in the Aude region of southern France has resulted in 1 death and several injuries, with the blaze still spreading as of Wednesday, as per a report in AP. The fire, which started on Tuesday, has damaged a land area equivalent in size to Paris and has prompted the deployment of approximately 1,800 firefighters. The affected area is described as rural and wooded, and notably includes wineries, indicating significant potential economic and agricultural impact on the region's wine industry. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security (DHS) has confirmed that the Federal Emergency Management Agency FEMA will no longer require states to certify their opposition to boycotts of Israel to receive federal emergency funds, according to a report in the Times of India. The policy change eliminates a previous condition tied to disaster relief and preparedness grants that mandated compliance with anti-boycott, divestment, and sanctions (BDS) provisions. While this federal adjustment does not overturn existing state-level anti-BDS laws, it removes a federal incentive for their enforcement and follows numerous legal challenges that argued such requirements violate First Amendment free speech rights. The emergence of a video capturing the defiant last words of Bano Bibi, a victim of an honor killing, is forcing a national reckoning with gender violence in Pakistan, the New York Times says in a report. Despite the passage of the anti-honor killing law in 2016, which closed loopholes allowing family pardons, enforcement remains a major challenge, with arrests and convictions being rare. This case highlights a growing trend of digital activism, where videos and social media are used to expose such crimes, creating public and international pressure. However, significant obstacles persist, including slow judicial processes and deeply entrenched societal norms, particularly in rural regions. The continued prevalence of these killings affects Pakistan's international human rights standing and can have implications for foreign aid and diplomatic relations. Asian stock markets were mostly higher in muted trading on Wednesday, diverging from Wall Street's decline, which was prompted by discouraging signs about the U.S. economy. As per a report in AP, investors are closely monitoring corporate earnings reports to gauge the effects of U.S. President Donald Trump's trade tariffs on business performance. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 index saw a 0.6 rise, with major companies including automakers and electronics firms scheduled to release their fiscal first quarter results this week. Iran executed 2 men in separate cases on Wednesday, one accused of spying for Israel and the other of being a member of the Islamic State group, according to a report in AP. The judiciary's news website identified the alleged spy as Raouz Bovadi, who was accused of relaying classified information to Israel's Mossad intelligence service. Authorities stated that Badi had provided information related to an Iranian nuclear scientist who was killed in a past assassination, an event Iran has previously blamed on Israel. A second, unnamed individual was executed for his alleged membership in the Islamic State group and for planning sabotage. A fast-moving wildfire in France's southern Aude region near the Spanish border has resulted in 1 death and several injuries, AP said in a report. The blaze, which broke out Tuesday afternoon in the village of Ribaut, damaged a swath of land as big as Paris overnight. According to authorities, about 1,500 firefighters are working to contain the fire, which remained very active and was still spreading as of Wednesday amid unfavorable weather conditions. The New Zealand Air Force conducted a high-risk medical evacuation of 3 staff members from the U.S. McMurdo Station in Antarctica, The Guardian says in a report. The operation was initiated following a request from the United States National Science Foundation, as one of the individuals required urgent medical care. The mission was executed under extreme conditions, including constant darkness and severe weather, which characterize the Antarctic winter. Governments from Miami to Barcelona are attempting to save shorelines where climate change-induced sea level rise and intense storms are accelerating erosion, a problem compounded by a global shortage of suitable sand, according to a report in the Financial Times. This scarcity is driven not only by natural processes but also by immense demand for sand in construction and land reclamation, which often outpaces natural replenishment and disrupts ecosystems. The degradation of beaches poses a direct threat to coastal tourism economies, property values, and critical marine habitats, forcing costly and often temporary interventions like beach nourishment. In response, there is a growing global shift towards more sustainable, nature-based solutions like restoring mangrove and dune systems, alongside international calls from bodies like the UN for better governance of sand resources. A growing number of company directors are relocating from the UK in response to proposed tax policy shifts by the opposition Labour Party, according to a report in the Financial Times. The analysis highlights that the United Arab Emirates is the top destination for these individuals. This exodus is primarily attributed to Labour's proposals to abolish the non-domiciled tax status and potentially reform taxes on carried interest for private equity executives. The trend raises concerns about a potential reduction in UK tax revenue, a brain drain of entrepreneurial talent, and a possible negative impact on the UK's standing as a global business hub. Moscow has officially protested after a Russian diplomatic vehicle was attacked by Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank, as per a report in Al Jazeera. The Russian government stated that its diplomats were threatened during the incident and has accused Israeli troops who were present of failing to intervene. This event occurs amid a documented increase in settler-related incidents in the region and could strain diplomatic relations between Russia and Israel, while also raising broader concerns about the security of international personnel in the West Bank. Israeli forces have killed over 80 people across Gaza, exacerbating a severe humanitarian situation. The casualties reportedly include dozens of Palestinians attempting to access humanitarian aid and at least 8 individuals who succumbed to starvation and malnutrition. These events highlight the severe operational challenges for international aid organizations and intensify political pressure on Israel for a ceasefire and unimpeded humanitarian access, aligning with previous orders from the International Court of Justice. The deaths from hunger underscore formal warnings from bodies like the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification (IPC), which had previously projected an imminent famine in the region. After nearly 2 decades of delays, China's state-owned metallurgical group corporation MCC is reportedly advancing efforts to begin copper extraction this year at the massive Messainak mine in Afghanistan's Logar province, according to a report in South China Morning Post. The project, a key part of the Taliban government's strategy to attract foreign investment and revive the nation's economy, aligns with China's goal of securing critical resources. However, experts caution that significant old fears, including persistent political instability, major security threats from groups like ISIS, and long-standing concerns over the preservation of an ancient Buddhist archaeological site at the location, continue to pose substantial risks to the venture. The resumption and expansion of U.S. and Middle East routes to Hong Kong by several overseas airlines are reaffirming the city's status as a major aviation hub despite geopolitical challenges. According to a report in the South China Morning Post, this move, which has pushed the number of carriers serving the city beyond pre-pandemic levels, is expected to increase competition for Hong Kong's flag carrier, Cathay Pacific Airways, particularly on direct U.S. services and routes transiting through the Gulf. For consumers, the increased capacity and competition are anticipated to result in more travel choices and potentially more competitive pricing, signaling renewed international confidence in Hong Kong's aviation sector as it continues its recovery. China is accelerating the development of its state-run Guohuang satellite constellation to compete with SpaceX's Starlink, but a resulting rocket shortage is forcing the government to prioritize the national project over other commercial and local ambitions, the South China Morning Post says in a report. The state-backed project, which aims to deploy 13,000 satellites, is receiving preferential access to limited launch resources, effectively sidelining other emerging Chinese space companies and provincial-level satellite network plans. This strategic shift highlights a growing tension between national priorities and the burgeoning private space sector, potentially impacting the diversity and innovation of China's space industry as it races to establish a foothold in the global satellite internet market. Women in Afghanistan are pursuing education through online courses as a response to the Taliban's comprehensive bans on their access to secondary schools and universities, AP says in a report. Since their takeover, the de facto authorities have also severely restricted women's employment and access to public spaces, effectively isolating them from society. While these online initiatives provide a critical educational lifeline, they are hampered by significant obstacles, including limited and costly internet access, frequent power outages, and the constant risk associated with defying the Taliban's edicts. The exclusion of women from education and the workforce has profound negative implications for Afghanistan's socio-economic development and remains a primary impediment to the country's international recognition and receipt of development aid. The Trump administration's policies tightening U.S. student visa requirements are causing a shift in global student mobility, with other nations capitalizing on the opportunity, as per a report in AP. Long wait times for U.S. visa interviews are reportedly causing some students in China to abandon their plans to study in the U.S. Consequently, countries like Britain are experiencing a surge in international undergraduate applications, and universities in Hong Kong are fielding transfer inquiries from foreign students currently in the U.S., indicating a potential redistribution of international academic talent. Mexican investigators are pointing to organized crime as responsible for the killing of Escobedo Vasquez Reyna, the Attorney General's office delegate for the state of Tamaulipas, according to a report in AP. Vasquez Reyna was fatally shot by gunmen in broad daylight on a major avenue in the border city of Reynosa on Monday. Authorities believe the assassination was likely retaliation for the government's recent seizures of illegally tapped fuel, a significant revenue source for cartels in the region. The attack highlights the ongoing violence in Tamaulipas and the significant risks faced by officials engaged in combating organized crime's illicit activities. Academics are urging that deliberate attacks on medics and hospitals in conflict zones be termed healthicide amid a rise in such incidents globally, according to a report in The Guardian. This trend of targeting healthcare, seen in Gaza, Ukraine, and Sudan, severely undermines the principle of medical neutrality and international humanitarian law. The systematic destruction of health infrastructure not only creates immediate humanitarian crises but also threatens global health security by crippling disease surveillance and increasing the risk of cross-border health emergencies, which carry significant economic implications. Lithuania has called on NATO for urgent support to bolster its air defenses after a Russian drone with explosives violated its airspace last week, France 24 said in a report. The drone was discovered in a military training area near the capital, Vilnius, and was successfully neutralized by authorities. The incident has raised concerns about escalating threats in the Baltic region amid the ongoing war in Ukraine and a pattern of Russian military activities near NATO borders. US President Donald Trump stated that the decision on whether to occupy all of Gaza is up to Israel, as per a report in Al Jazeera. This comment signals a potential policy shift from the previous administration of former President Joe Biden, which had publicly opposed a long-term Israeli reoccupation of the territory. The statement comes as international organizations continue to warn that an expanded Israeli military operation and potential full occupation would be catastrophic for the Palestinian population, citing the severe humanitarian crisis. Trump's position is consistent with his historically pro-Israel foreign policy stance, which has often deferred to Israeli government decisions on regional security matters. Nearly 60,000 people have been displaced by a recent escalation of fighting in Mozambique's northern Cabo Delgado province, exacerbating a severe humanitarian crisis amid major cuts in international aid, Al Jazeera said in a report. The new wave of displacement is attributed to a resurgence in attacks by the Al-Sunna Wajama ASWJ insurgent group, also known as ISIS Mozambique. This development comes despite the presence of Mozambican, Rwandan, and Southern African Development Community SADC forces, raising concerns about the security strategy's long-term effectiveness. The situation poses significant risks to regional stability and could further delay major natural gas projects vital to Mozambique's economy, while humanitarian organizations struggle to respond due to funding shortfalls. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has accused Israel of carrying out a systematic genocide in Gaza, marking a severe downturn in public diplomatic relations between the two nations, Al Jazeera said in a report. The accusation adds significant political weight to international pressure on Israel, which is already facing a genocide case at the International Court of Justice (ICJ) brought by South Africa. Sisi's statement, made against the backdrop of a severe humanitarian crisis in Gaza, is expected to influence the political environment surrounding the ICJ case and could complicate normalization efforts between Israel and other Arab states. The U.S. Coast Guard has officially described the 2023 Titan submersible implosion as a preventable tragedy, attributing the disaster to inadequate safety practices, deliberate efforts to avoid regulatory oversight, and a toxic workplace culture, The Guardian said in a report. The investigation's findings pinpoint these failures as the cause of the catastrophic implosion during a commercial voyage to the Titanic wreck, which killed all 5 people aboard. The report is expected to intensify calls for stricter international regulations and mandatory safety certifications for the deep-sea tourism industry, addressing the legal loopholes that allowed the experimental vessel to operate without standard industry approval. In Pakistan's climate-vulnerable Sindh province, local musicians are using traditional folk songs and modern rap to communicate the dangers of climate change to communities affected by poverty and illiteracy, according to a report in AP. This grassroots movement highlights a culturally resonant strategy for climate advocacy, with potential implications for national policy and international development funding. By giving voice to those directly impacted by extreme weather events, such as devastating floods, these artists are fostering local resilience and underscoring the need for targeted support for community-led adaptation initiatives. Kim Kyeon-hee, the wife of South Korea's ousted former President Yoon Suk-yeol, appeared for questioning by a special prosecutor on Wednesday over allegations of stock manipulation, bribery, and interference in party nominations, as per a report in AP. The probe is one of several launched by Seoul's new liberal government targeting the former conservative administration. The investigations follow the impeachment and ousting of Yoon Suk-yeol, which occurred after his brief and controversial imposition of martial law in December. U.S. President Donald Trump intends to host the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan for peace negotiations aimed at resolving their long-standing conflict, Al Jazeera said in a report. This development follows a recent meeting between Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev in the United Arab Emirates, which concluded without a significant breakthrough. The proposed talks in the U.S. would address a comprehensive peace treaty, a primary focus since Azerbaijan's military offensive in Nagorno-Karabakh in September 2023. Reinforcing its strategic focus on foundational artificial intelligence hardware, SoftBank Group has significantly increased its investments in key semiconductor companies, according to a report in the Japan Times. The Japanese conglomerate raised its holdings in US-based AI chip designer Nvidia to about $3 billion and established a new position in Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing company TSMC worth around $330 million by the end of March. This move aligns with CEO Masayoshi Son's strategy to concentrate on AI gear, positioning SoftBank to capitalize on the AI sector beyond its ownership of chip designer ARM. Japanese tire manufacturer Bridgestone will sell its carbon black business in Mexico to the US-based Cabot Corporation, the Japan Times said in a report. This move is part of Bridgestone's ongoing global strategy to streamline its assets and focus on its core tire and mobility solutions businesses. The sale follows a similar divestment in July when Bridgestone sold its carbon black operations in Thailand to Japan's Tokai Carbon. The transaction reflects a broader industry trend of tire makers outsourcing raw material production and consolidation among specialized chemical producers like Cabot, which will expand its production capacity and market presence in North America. China is struggling to utilize its unprecedented build-out of renewable energy due to significant lags in grid development, according to a report in the Japan Times. The country's largest solar and wind power hubs are located in its sparsely populated interior, thousands of kilometers from the major coastal cities where energy demand is highest. This geographical mismatch requires a robust network of ultra-high voltage UHV transmission lines and energy storage systems, but their construction is not keeping up with the rapid installation of new generation capacity. As a result, a substantial amount of clean energy is curtailed, or intentionally wasted, which impacts the financial viability of renewable projects and could hinder China's progress toward its 2060 carbon neutrality goal. The Netherlands has committed $500 million to buy US military equipment for Ukraine, which includes critical Patriot missile system components, according to a report in Deutsche Welle. This move represents the first instance of funding under a new NATO mechanism designed to centralize and coordinate military aid for Ukraine. The initiative aims to create a more predictable, long-term support structure, shifting some responsibilities from the previous US-led Ukraine Defense Contact Group to a formal NATO framework, thereby increasing burden sharing among European allies and ensuring a steady flow of essential defense supplies. Latest blogs.